Hey everybody, I'm Steve with Infinitive, and I am here excited to talk to my good friend Tiho and share a little bit about everything that's changed in the last couple of years. We had a global pandemic, and I think excited to hear, Tiho, what's different now than how things were about 2.5, 3 years ago in this whole media space. We are focused really all around how to drive more revenue in your streaming media space, but it's different today than it was before. So you just wrote this blog. I'm excited to read it and learn more about it. But how to optimize your second most important asset to drive streaming revenue. So Tiho, what's the second most important asset?
The second most important asset, Steve, is you guessed it, the first party data. The first most important asset is obviously the content. Content is always king. We've known that always, but now with the things that we'll talk about, we'll see why first party data has become such a critical asset. It's really the second most important asset after the content.
No, that's great. Yeah. And I know that so much changed in the past that when we were working with clients before, we probably would have had a different answer in some cases than what we have today. And yeah, so tell us what's the difference? Why is it so different now than it was before?
So there are a few different factors that have accelerated the industry and has pushed it to a new landscape, really. And some of these factors and why that affects first-party data are the death of the cookie. This is to no surprise to anyone. We've known that for a while. That's the case. That's why first-party data is now so much more important than before. The second factor is the direct-to-consumer. There's so many more streaming services, as you like to say, a lot of companies, you just put a plus to the name and then there you are, it's a new streaming channel. There's so many different options nowadays that eyeballs and audiences are scattered everywhere. And that's really the third factor. There's so many varieties of content and streaming services. And you and I always talk about sports and how I'm now able to watch third and fourth tier English soccer and not just watch the game live. I can watch the recording, I can see the goals, the highlights, I can learn so much more about the players. It all goes to say that there's so much more content at the moment and audiences are really being shifted to many different places. And the fourth important piece and factor that has changed over the last few years is, Steve, really the consumer privacy. So you have regulations such as GDPR, CCPA. Many other states are also enforcing regulations as well. So that's a big factor, Steve.
Yeah. So really, I guess what you're saying is where people didn't even, or at least a lot of media companies didn't even have these direct connections to consumers. They now do, but now consumers can go anywhere. They have so much more choice. So it really all comes down to how do I build much more trusted relationships with my consumers, and that all goes back to that first party data. So at Infinitive, how do we go about doing this? I mean, media consumer intelligence is a big thing. It's a big umbrella, but how do we help clients really go after this space?
Because the landscape has changed, so have the data sources that are available to these companies now. Because of the streaming, so much more data is being collected from web analytics to first party specific data about the consumer, to then third-party data that you also can get to augment your in-house data. So really what Infinitive does is help clients to improve their consumer intelligence by leveraging three simple steps. First and foremost is the collection of that data. The second one is protecting that data. That's become an increasingly important piece of the puzzle. And then finally, the connecting, which is the essence of those three steps, which is activating the data, making that available to marketing, to sales, for improved advertising, and really monetizing, helping to monetize and make sense of that first party data. That's, in a nutshell, that's how we do it, Steve, in three simple steps.
All right, so collect, protect, connect, right? And all of that comes back to driving more revenue. It's a neat way of going about it. And I guess at the end of the day, this also ties back to everything that we talk to media companies about. So it is all around this consumer intelligence or media consumer intelligence space. But then we also get in deep with people around your media intelligence. That does go back to that first most important asset, which is content is king. And at the end of the day, how do we drive both those things together and monetize what you're doing in order to drive more revenue into your media business? You're going to be
Yeah.
digging in deeper in each of these steps, right, going forward. So people should watch this space for upcoming blogs.
Absolutely. There's a lot more to say on each of these 3 steps that we do. And we know because of our experience, because of all the conversations that we end up with we know for sure that whoever takes and leverages their first party data most successfully and connects that with their media intelligence, with their content, and gets smart around their content and their users, those are going to be the winning profiles.
That's great. All right. Well, hey, this was great. Thanks for doing this. Always learn a ton from you. And yeah, we'll touch base again, Tio. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks, Steve. My pleasure. Bye.
Bye-bye.